Thanks for stopping by. I finally beat Stranded Deep, and the ending kind of blew my mind. Also, I might have broken the building system a bit. Well, you see what I mean. Thanks to this glitch, I killed all the bosses without even sweat. They couldn't even reach me. Anyway, let's raise some chaos in paradise. Oh, and I recommend watching in headphones. Let's go. The journey begins in a private jet. Clearly, our hero isn't exactly struggling financially, but as it turns out, money doesn't buy crash resistance, as somehow I survived and instinctively reached for the true survival essential, a fine bottle of wine. But as it turned out, the game doesn't share my addictions. So I check on the pilots, and guess what? They're gone. They left me behind like budget airline luggage. No time to cry. I jump into my sad little life raft and blacked out from explosion. A typical day for a millionaire. And that's how my survival begins. I woke up to the sound of seagulls and the sight of a shark. This is an interesting looking shark, by the way. In this game, you can make a steak out of a shark, but more on that later. Anyway, I grab a paddle and ignore the starter island. Suddenly, our new friend attacked my raft, so I decided to move out as fast as I can. I'm headed for that mysterious island way over there. It took 2 or 3 minutes of real time. When I arrived at the island, I noticed a sunken ship. There will definitely be something interesting there, and I decided to check it out. I grabbed everything I found in the flooded sections of the ship and barely managed to float to the surface. I also made it to the upper deck. Found 2 bundles of yellow buoys, no clue what for, but they look useful. And inside the bridge, I found a vehicle fuel part and a pair of binoculars. Well, binoculars are already interesting. Of course, I climbed the mast. In the container at the top, I found a can of rations, hopefully not expired. Then I decided to try out my new binoculars. Then jumped down like a hero, straight into the teeth of a shark. Nice bite, buddy. We'll settle this later. Back on shore, I decided it was time to craft my first weapon. Hard to call this thing a weapon, but hey, it cuts grass and leaves, so that's what I did. By the way, these leaves, you'll need a lot of them later. Trust me. After crafting a rope out of leaves, I finally made a decent knife. Well, decent-ish, but it can chop down trees slowly, but it works. Do you hear the word slowly, right? What is slowly really? Just not very fast. And honestly, what am I rushing to? There's no traffic, no deadlines, just me and a palm tree. Finally, I'm almost out of words. It took me half a day to chop the palm tree into logs and then into sticks. I clearly need to craft an axe for this activity. By the time I was done, it was already dark. Figured I'd better make a campfire. Yeah, I was flying for business, not planning to crash in the middle of the ocean, but somehow I've got this fancy watch that shows everything. Hunger, thirst, health, skills, status effects. Pretty cool, huh? Looks like this giant crab decided to test me. Wrong day, buddy. I love crab meat. Come here. So yeah, that was a day. Plane crash, ocean, sharks, crab fight. Think I've earned a moment by the fire. But turns out you can't relax in this game. The moment you chill, bam, someone's biting your butt. This massive boar came out of nowhere and messed me up real bad. I don't even know how many spears I threw at him. Personally, I think 1 to the head was enough. But hey, the game says no. Now I've got bacon for breakfast. Though he's still twitching his head like he's mad. Well, buddy, you picked a fight with the most dangerous predator on the planet, a human. There's a new sheriff on this island. Are you kidding me? A snake now? A paradise, they said. All right then, come here, you sneaky noodle. I'll eat all of you, the crab, the pig, the snake. Who's next? Bring it on. There's a hungry man on this island, and I swear I didn't start this war, but I'm gonna finish it. All right then, meanwhile I need a drink. Coconut. Quick and easy. I drink it just to survive. But honestly, I don't even like coconuts in real life. Then again, I've only tried Indonesian and Sri Lankan coconuts. Maybe others are better. Okay, chopping palms with a knife? Stupid idea. We got that now. So I crafted a primitive axe. Let's test it out. Wait, what? Hold space to climb the palm tree? No way, that's awesome. You just grab a coconut without hurting the tree? Respect. Anyway, the island's paradise. But even in paradise it rains, and I've got no roof over my head. So I built a tiny shelter. Sticks, palm leaves, and rope. Now I can sleep and save. That's better. Good night to me. All right, time to deal with thirst. Drinking coconuts all day? Madness. So I gotta build this fancy water station thing. Let's go. Hydration or death. Ran around the island, found all the stuff I needed, and boom, built a water collector. It works like this. Leaves on the bottom, steam goes up, hits the tarp, drips down into a coconut cup. Science. So yeah, no more water problems. For now. All right, time to test my island kitchen. Chopped up the snake, got a bit of meat, threw it on the fire, but then I saw something new on my fancy watch. Turns out it's not just animals, fish, and reptiles trying to kill me. Even the sun wants me dead. I have to eat, sleep, and survive the weather. This game's out for blood, man. I hid in the shade of a rock and realized it's time to start thinking like a builder. Walls, a roof, a little sun shelter, just in case. But for that, I need wood. A lot of wood. Sorry, island. I'm gonna need your trees for this one. I made a hammer. Now I can build stuff. First, I placed the base right here on the rocks next to my campfire. Then I put up some walls. One of them even has a window with an ocean view. Finished it off with a roof, and just like that, another day went by. Of course, I got hungry again, so I grilled some crab meat and took a break by the fire. This game has a cozy vibe, you know? I heard the devs are working on a sequel. It'd be awesome if they added VR mode. I'd love to survive here in full scale. What do you think? You feel the vibe? Anyway, after chilling by the fire, eating and drinking, I went to sleep. But to make more advanced stuff, I'll need leather. And to get leather, I have to dry it first. So I skinned the boar, sorry, buddy, and hung the hide on a drying rack. While exploring the island, I also found some stone deposits. But to mine them, I needed a pickaxe, so I crafted one and gathered the stone. Turns out stone is a pretty rare resource here. I'll probably have to go on expeditions just to find more, but I didn't know that yet. I was spending resources without thinking. Classic human behavior, right? You don't value what you have until it's gone. Anyway, after collecting some stones, I built a fire pit. That's important if you want to smoke meat, keeps it fresh longer. So I spent the whole day gathering stuff and finally built a smoker. Threw on a few sticks, dropped some pork there, and now we wait. While the meat's cooking, I wanted to ask something. What's your view on violence in video games? Do they really need to be as brutal as they are now? I remember starting one of the Tomb Raider games. Early on in a tutorial, the game made me shoot a deer with a bow and skin it to craft a bag or something. The animal didn't attack me, it just stood there. But unless I killed it, the game wouldn't continue. So I stopped playing. I still don't know what the rest of that game is about, and honestly, I don't care. I believe it's okay to kill in self-defense, but not just for fun. Taking a life, even a virtual one, shouldn't be entertainment. Anyway, just some food for thought. Meanwhile, I've crafted myself a hoe, a gardening hoe, to grow fruits, veggies, trees, because stuff runs out and I like to eat. So I placed my first little garden bed here, planted a yucca tree. We'll need those leaves later, but it needs water, right? So I made a leather water pouch. Pretty fancy. How's the meat doing? Looks ready. Smoked bacon with a hint of despair and freedom. Gordon Ramsay would be proud. Water the plants. Check. Time to sleep. Another day. Remember those yellow buoys from the shipwreck? I grabbed them so I can build my raft later. Also found a real hammer on that ship. Finally. Okay, let's build. Turns out I've got a real talent for building. Okay. One tiny platform won't get me far, so let's add a few more. Now it's starting to look like a raft, though I wouldn't exactly call it sturdy. Time to reinforce it. You can build the floor from wood, metal, or bricks. I had a chunk of metal lying around, so I used it to strengthen the center. For the sides, I went with simple wooden flooring. Gotta be smart with materials. Oh, and while I was editing this video, shout out to Adrian for subscribing. Welcome aboard, man. Grab a seat. Here we play games, break mechanics, make dumb jokes. You get the vibe. Anyway, back to raft construction. More scavenging, more dragging junk by hand, tires, barrels, anything floaty. I even built an engine from random parts I found. Doesn't work without fuel, though. Shocking, I know. Being stuck in the ocean at night with no lights? Yeah, terrifying. So I built myself a lantern. Now sea monsters can spot me more easily. Great plan, right? Let's not waste those batteries. Remember that shark steak I mentioned? Well, while scavenging, I got attacked by a tiger shark, but I was faster. Now I can officially open a Japanese seafood restaurant. Next challenge. How do you find gasoline on a deserted island? Eventually, while looking through some blueprints, I stumbled on this thing. It makes fuel? Perfect. Only problem, it needs rocks. And guess what? I've got no more rocks on my island. So yeah, time to sail to the next island and start rock hunting.
Do you remember how we kissed in the kitchen as the coffee poured? By the end my face was sore from your stubble, but I still wanted more. And all the miles that we spent in the air, where we're going I don't care. I'm just so glad you were there that night in the restaurant. And in the evenings when we settle in bed, it's like you're in my head. How did I get so lucky? So I say it again and again.
Have you seen those sea monsters? How am I supposed to make it back with a whole bag of rocks through that mess? All right, I'll figure something out. Nice. A degree well spent collecting rocks. After gathering every rock I could find, I set off back to my home island. On the way, I got attacked by sharks, of course. Luckily, the raft held together and didn't flip. And just after sunset, I finally made it back home. First thing I did was build that dumb fuel station. But turns out, fuel doesn't just magically appear out of thin air. Shocking, I know. I started looking for whatever material I needed to make fuel. But as you can see, no luck. And honestly, I'd never have guessed. It's potatoes. Yeah, potatoes. I only found out thanks to the internet. I searched my whole island and found everything except potatoes, aloe, peepee, ajuga, no potatoes. None. What kind of nonsense is that? Finally, after half a day of wandering in the shade, I spotted it. The sacred little plant. You're rare as heck. Now I just need to make sure I don't accidentally eat it. So yeah, I planted it. The plan is to grow more potatoes. A lot more. While my glorious potato empire for fuel production was growing, I decided to explore building in this game. First, I tried building a staircase up the nearest mountain. but the game wouldn't let me place stairs without support structures. There's a little area on the stairs where you can attach another staircase, but it's pointless. You can't jump onto it. Technically possible, practically useless. So I gave up on that idea. Next, I tried building on my raft. Turns out you can place stairs, just crooked. Good to know. Also, gravity doesn't seem to apply to stairs and floors here, so I had a brilliant idea. Build a bridge to the next island. Actually, a whole network of bridges. Problem, I ran out of wood. All of it. So I crafted an anchor out of rocks, slapped on a sail and rudder, and started sailing to nearby islands for supplies. But then, disappointment. I hit the build limit. I couldn't build any further forward, only sideways. Seems like islands are separate chunks that load in as you get close to them, probably to save memory. So yeah, dream canceled. I tried looping the bridge around to continue in a straight line, no luck. And that's how I ended up with this ridiculous floating mess. Feeling seasick yet? Just checking. Gorgeous weather. Can't deny that. Anyway, I went hunting for more barrels and tires to expand the raft. Barrels equals more raft. Buoys equals even more raft. You get the idea. After returning from the expedition, I harvested my potatoes and threw them into the fuel processor. But what do I do with the bridge? So, I had a plan. Remove one segment so the whole thing collapses, then disassemble it piece by piece on the shore. Because if I break it in the ocean, I'll lose all the sticks. But the game said, physics? Never heard of it. So now I'm stuck with my masterpiece of total resource waste. Just gonna admire it, I guess. While the fuel was cooking and my raft had grown quite a bit, I decided to explore the 4 cardinal directions: north, south, east, and west. Since my base was on the eastern shore of my home island, I headed east. That way it'd be easier to return in a straight line. There's no map in this game, so you have to rely on a compass. I set out at sunrise to get a better view of the area. Sticking to the course, I spotted a massive ship through my binoculars. I mean huge. I could probably reach it, but I wouldn't have enough supplies to make it back. So I set up camp on the nearest island, just to shelter, water, and food to avoid dying like an idiot. I landed by a wreck where a shark was already waiting. Classic. After a quick swim and a not-so-fruitful search, I started building a temporary base. The ship's to the east, so home must be west. Following all the survival rules: shelter, a water still, and a campfire. For food, I decided to go old school, spearfishing, but all I managed to catch was a discus fish. Guess fishing's not my thing. After wasting the whole day and finally building a smoker, a wild boar wandered by. Dinner solved. Next morning, feeling refreshed, it was time to explore that massive ship. Now that I had a base nearby, as I got closer, I was stunned by how big it really was. Turned out, it was a military destroyer. I ran around the decks, found nothing useful, but then I opened that door. An airplane so I can escape this place. Gyrocopter parts? Nice. Food supplies? Makes sense. Now I just need plane parts. Most important of all, Lucky Ducky already took his rightful spot on board, so we're halfway there. In the crafting menu, I saw the required parts: rudder, engine, and propeller, but there's no recipe. There was a tab labeled trophies, though. Looks like that's where I'll find the clues. I grabbed my gyrocopter parts, waved goodbye to the destroyer, and swam back home. See you around, big guy. Back at base, first thing, build a gyrocopter. Of course. First the base, then the seat, engine, controls, and finally the rotors. Perfect. Gravity actually works here. All right, time to fly. Fueled up the bird. We already went east, so this time I flew west and found a giant buoy. Using my expert piloting skills, obviously, I managed to land right on top. Turns out that buoy was home to a giant squid. He knocked my gyrocopter off and swatted me like an annoying mosquito. That's when I got the perfect motivation to break the game's mechanics. Fighting sea bosses underwater? That's nonsense. But above the water? Now we're talking. To test this new theory, I decided to build a lighthouse staircase. Since there's no map in the game and you have to navigate using a compass, a tall structure would be visible from afar, a perfect landmark to mark my base. Here's how it works. Place a floor piece, but don't finish building it. Then place a wall on the far side of the floor, also unfinished. Next, place another wall on the near side, the one closer to you. Again, don't build it. It's just a placeholder. You won't be using it to climb. Now place a staircase onto that front wall ghost, and this one you do finish, so you can actually walk on it. Climb up, place another floor, finish that one too, and just repeat the steps as many times as you want, or until you run out of wood. Personally, this height was enough for me. Skyscraper lighthouse. Achieved. Since I'm now officially a master builder, I had an idea, a Geiger raft, built to defeat bosses. Step 1, I made the raft able to move in both directions. Double sails, double anchors, double rudders, all synced. Then I thought, what if I build another stairway to heaven and fight the sea bosses from above, not underwater? Genius, right? Now, normally stairs don't snap onto a raft, except in one spot. But once I place a stair there, the game lets me place a floor on top of it. That floor becomes part of the raft, connected through the stairs. The problem? I couldn't reach the second floor. No way to place a ladder going up, and jumping didn't help. Also, objects like barrels, tires, and crates, no collision. You just phase right through them. Great. But then, I discovered a weird trick. If you already have a second floor platform, you place a ladder on the first floor. Then you remove the platform above the ladder, and suddenly the game lets you snap another ladder leading up. Ladder on top of ladder. A bug? Probably. But it works. Now just get a running start and jump straight onto it. 2-story raft. You're welcome. After spending all day building and burning through half the island's trees, this is what I came up with. A floating sniper tower. The idea was simple. Sit in the little hut on top and shoot the boss through the door frames. Sounds smart, right? Yeah, no. Turns out this boss have very long tentacles. He smacked me right off the platform every time while I was trying to spot him from above. So the answer was obvious. Build higher. You hear that? Yeah, me neither. It's so calm, so peaceful up here. Congratulations, we've officially built high enough that the boss can't reach us anymore. We did it. He's down there. I'm up here. He can't touch me. But there's a slight issue. You see, in this game, the player isn't actually attached to the floor. So when the platform tilts, you don't tilt with it. And since our mast is so ridiculously tall, it sways like crazy. Forget fighting the boss. I can barely stay standing, so now we're stuck in a beautiful, stupid stalemate. He can't reach me, and I can't fight him. Perfect balance, as all things should be. Yep, I'm an idiot. But hey, an ambitious idiot. A bit upset that my genius plan didn't work out. I decided to change the strategy. The idea of throwing spears at bosses from above? Solid. But I needed to be closer. High enough to be safe, but low enough to actually see the boss and hit him. So I called this new project the Well of Death. And off I went to fight the boss. Well, not really a fight, to be honest. It was more like an execution. I'm sorry, Luska. So yeah, the Well of Death turned out to be a pretty effective invention. Too bad I couldn't just steal that propeller without killing a living creature. I don't know why we're wired for aggression. Maybe someone out there needs us to be this way. My next stop, the Great Abaya, a huge moray eel, living her quiet little life inside a sunken ship until I showed up. Of course, she didn't stand a chance against my rooftop javelin rain. I I took a plane engine part from her, and off I went to the final boss. Turns out, the first boss in this game was the hardest, so poor Megalodon had no chance when he met me. I arrived at sunset, and very quickly he just vanished into the dark water. I was so amazed by my 3-story raft fortress, I decided to pause the execution and get some sleep. And in the morning, I finished the job. Now I had all 3 parts to fix the plane. Back to my island, I packed up supplies and flew to the aircraft carrier. Since I didn't want to leave my gyrocopter, I parked it on the wing of the plane. As you've seen, parking is my thing. I fueled the plane, filled the water tank, stuffed every suitcase with potatoes, and installed all the missing parts. It was time to leave this archipelago. Go home? Yeah. And yes, the gyrocopter had to stay. Maybe someone else will find it useful. Let's fly. So that's how it ends, or maybe begins. See, it's a time loop. We crash our own plane, I survive, rebuild, escape, only to crash again. Honestly, I love that concept, and since there's a second game on the way, maybe we'll try to break the loop next time. I remember this game used to be stuck in development and people had mixed feelings about it, but now it's fully playable and pretty great. Hope you enjoyed the journey. See you in the next video. Bye.